Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Murphy's Law. I'm Eric Murphy, and with me today is Vila Bianca. Hey, V.
Hi.
I'm kind of stumbling over my words a little bit.
Just a little bit. You got enough caffeine in you?
I do. And I'm excited about today. So instead of doing what we were originally planning, we had a really good episode of Talk Heathen yesterday.
Yeah.
And there was one call in particular that you wanted to talk about. And so I went in and I clipped it. And for people who want to see a little bit behind the scenes, I'm recording this the very day it's going out. So this is quick.
This is fast turnaround.
Right? Yeah. But we do want to get into it because it is a really neat call with some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, this is my jam.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Good. All right, let's go to that first clip. Let's talk to DeWitt.
Oh, God. I know where this is going.
In Seattle. Okay, that did not seem like that was your jam.
No, I thought it was going to be something very different. See, when somebody calls into Talk Heathen and all that's on the call screener's little note thingy is wants to talk about the politicization of certain scientific issues and how it relates to faith, the first thing that I'm always going to jump to is you want to talk about trans issues. You want to talk about pronouns. You want to use this platform to talk about something that, frankly, we don't talk about on this show. That's my other show. But it's just, I was on edge. I was ready.
Oh yeah, you were.
I was ready. Wait, I saw your little mouse thing was over the drop button too. You were just like,
yeah, that's true. I was ready just in case it was somebody who was going to start screaming expletives. It almost makes me miss the days when our biggest worry was vegan callers calling in to tell us how immoral we are for eating meat.
Oh, gosh. There's always going to be somebody. There's always going to be someone. But yeah, it was not a conversation I was ready to have yesterday.
Understandable. And I could tell, but he was pretty surprising. As soon as we pulled him up, we asked him what he wanted to talk about.
I just want to talk about the politicization of science and scientific evidence and how that might misconstrued with the transition from being like a Christian to an atheist and how there might be some politicization there.
So that look was,
It's like,
okay.
All right. This is not the usual talking point. They didn't jump right into things. So
right.
I was interested in the overall concept of, hey, how do the two things connect?
Mm-hmm.
And how is the way we talk about science and the truthfulness with which we approach it impact somebody who might be looking at that science in the process of deconverting? And if they realize that something's off, would it pull them back into the fold? Or, how's that tension work?
Absolutely. Because you don't, at no point along the way do we want people to be, even if it's convinced away, we don't want people to be convinced for bad reasons.
Right, exactly. So
I absolutely agree. And I believe he has one more here.
When it comes to issues such as, climate change and other scientific issues, some of the data is misconstrued, not really told the full truth on. And I want to get your opinion on how that could affect someone's belief in transition.
Okay, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
You actually already just covered that. So I believe it's the next one.
To discuss this in a more broad context, however, I don't think it's possible in a politicized world to have something that is truly apolitical.
Okay, so I was a little off, but let's actually dive in that direction. So before we get into the specifics, I know that he already threw in climate change and wanted to go over it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And before we hit climate change, though, you jumped in and you said, I don't think anything can be apolitical. What do you mean by that?
The more that I talk with people of various walks of life, various groups, various causes and concerns, the more I realized something that I personally didn't think back when I was a Christian in undergrad, which is that everything has a political context. Because really, when we say political, we don't mean something that's going to make it onto the debate stage necessarily, although a lot of them do. Politics is just the way we aggregate and dispense resources to other people. And everything is affected by that. Race, gender, sex, religion, education, healthcare, all of it is inherently political just because politics is how we deal with all those things.
Okay.
So to say, oh, well, something is not political, what I hear when I hear someone say that is, I haven't talked to the people for whom this is political. I am not affected by this personally. So I am not able to draw that line from politics, this like esoteric kind of heady academic thing, to real world consequences.
Okay. I kind of want to push.
Yeah.
So just so that I can kind of break that down a little bit, it sounds like what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if people care enough about it to study it, they care enough about it for it to be political?
No, not necessarily. I'm saying that whether or not you agree that something is political, it is. Like having a phone is political, depending on the kind of phone you get. You know, Apple tends to take a little bit better care of security things. So when the government comes to get your data, you know, like if you have an Apple phone, you might be a little bit more safe due to political issues that have already happened and legislation that has already been addressed in this area. There are components in cell phones that are farmed from other countries using slave labor a lot of the time. So using a phone is, you know, so like if you break anything down to its core components, it always goes back to who's benefiting from this, who needs resources, who is being hurt by this. And ultimately, that's what politics is about, is trying to address those issues in the best way possible.
Okay. I like that. Okay. So so his big question there was about the 97%. I believe I have a clip. Let me just check the next one to be sure.
Yeah. To discuss this in a more look for something that's peer reviewed, right? Look for something.
No. Okay. So I actually skipped past it because it took a long time to talk about it. So let's summarize it just a little bit.
Yeah.
So he asked if we knew about the 97% and climate change. And we both nodded our heads and went on talking about something without establishing it at all. So what the hell was he talking about?
So there is a number that's thrown around a lot. That is 97% of scientists believe that climate change is man-made.
Okay.
And it's been politicized. That number has made appearances on stump speeches, in debates. 97% of scientists think this thing. And there has been some debate about that number specifically and that percentage and whether or not that's accurately representing, you know, the scientific community at large. And
just to be clear, the caller wasn't saying that he was supporting that as a figure. He was actually a religious caller, somebody who we may disagree with in other ways, who took a look at this and said, hey, you know what, the data is not.
I'm seeing some discrepancies here. I'm seeing some other sources telling me this number is not correct. So what do I do in that situation? And is this correct? Or is this a lie that's been fabricated to pull me away from my religion? Or is this an honest miscommunicate? Like where did this break down?
Yeah.
And we actually had some amazing commenters in the comments of that episode pretty soon after it aired, giving us a little bit more information about that 97% and where exactly that fell in the scheme of the larger conversation. I personally wasn't able to do too much research before this because it's a quick turnaround very next day.
Oh, yeah.
But I did find some interesting information that kind of clarifies both sides, really, which is expected, right? It's not going to be, oh, we're always 100% right. And it's not going to be, oh, it's all a huge fabrication. Everyone's lying to you. It's usually going to land you somewhere in the middle. So if I can read something real quick.
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So I got this article off of Forbes, and it is a few years old, but the link is going to be in your description.
Absolutely.
So you can check it out yourself.
Links to everything we're talking about is in the description, including the episode that we pulled this clip from.
Yes. So it says, Cook, the person who in 2013 released this 97% number, is careful to describe his 2013 study results as being based on climate experts. Political figures and popular press are not so careful. President Obama and former Secretary of State John Kerry, for example, have repeatedly characterized it as 97% of scientists, not climate experts. So there's the discrepancy. We're hearing 97% of scientists, and that's not accurate. 97% of climate scientists, however, is pretty much on point. This person writes, given the results, it's clear that support among scientists for human-caused climate change is below 97%. And most studies, including other specialities other than climatologists, find support in the range of 80 to 90%. So 80 to 90% of all
really
scientists.
High.
Right, not 97 specifically. And Cook ended up doing a second review in 2016, 3 years later, that landed the consensus again between 90 and 100%. So the 97% was a number that people grab onto because people like numbers, right? People like that solid, here is a fact, here is a number.
Yeah.
And according to these studies, it is around that, but there is wiggle room there. And it's not necessarily, objective reality. Every time you count, it's going to be 97%. I also looked at an article from Skeptical Science that had a really interesting graphic.
I actually pulled that graphic. Let me pull it right up.
So this is a brief, very simplified summary, as you can tell, of over 10 years of research from 2004 to 2014. And you can see here that all of these are the percentages of scientists who agree that global warming, climate change is man-made. So anywhere from 91 to 100%. So yes, the 97 is pretty substantial here. 4 of these, 4 of the 7 are 97 exactly, but there is wiggle room there. So
just to kind of recap why this is important.
Right.
It would appear to me that yes, spreading the word and saying, hey, climate change is important and we're causing it. We need to do something about it. It's something that we should be doing. But when we take shortcuts and when we do bad science, when we do bad studies, it bites us in the butt.
Or not even bad studies. We just communicate poorly about studies that were done with nuance in a way that doesn't convey that nuance. If we lose information, it's a game of telephone. And information pieces get lost, but it's not a huge conspiracy theory. It's what normally happens when people communicate with each other, especially between varying audiences. So yes, if you hear that this 97% is inaccurate, yes, technically it can be argued that it is, but that doesn't mean that anywhere below 80 to 100% of scientists overall don't agree with it. So it still is a substantial amount.
Absolutely.
And again, I do want to clarify this was after maybe 15, 20 minutes of research. So there might be other information.
Put more information in the comments so that we can read it and do a follow-up.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was the specific about climate science.
Right.
You went on from there. He had questions. And actually, let me see if I can find it. I think it is.
Make sure that you're going to.
I jumped into climate change, and I don't know if you guys know about the 97% number.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There it is. Thanks. Thanks, guy. Thanks, guy. Okay. See, this is what
look for something that's peer reviewed, right? Look for something that has had other independent eyes on it by other experts in that field.
You start giving actual tips on how to research, what to look for. And that first one you gave is look for peer-reviewed studies.
Yeah.
The example that you gave was that there were some magazines that you needed to jump through some special hoops.
Yes, there are some Christian-based scientific journals, and I use the term lightly there, that will not publish you unless you sign a statement of faith saying that you believe in the same kind of doctrine that they do. So that automatically weeds out anything that contradicts you, which is certainly not science.
Okay.
So making sure, just because it's published does not mean that it's accurate, does not mean that it's credible. You can publish anything on the internet now. So just saying, hey, this was published somewhere is not enough. You need to get deeper than that.
Got it. And I know that I've seen articles about kind of these magazines that solely exist because people pay to have their own studies published.
Right. And there are also vanity presses and print on demand type situations where you can publish something and pay for it to be published just for the sake of getting published. And honestly, I could get onto a whole tangent there. It is very difficult to get a job in any academic field without publishing credits, without that credibility. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation where we are rewarding people who are being published in these journals. Mm-hmm. We're incentivizing the publication process, but we're also not being as potentially skeptical as we need to be in terms of what is published. Having the quantity is prized over the quality in some situations. So you can say, I am a published scholar, I'm a published scientist. And you go, okay, cool, that sounds very impressive. And then you look and you have 3 things published and they're all by a Christian press who you paid to put your work in. Like, it's like, okay, well, it sounds nice, but it doesn't tell me anything about the validity of your research.
Well, so here's my concern is, let's say I do a genuinely well-researched study, mm-hmm. and it doesn't grab a lot of attention because nobody cares. It's and that is a lot of science. Mm-hmm. And so I go to a vanity press, I have it published. Mm-hmm. What I'm worried about on the research end is, should I just kick out all publications that do this just to be thorough? Or
well,
how do I decide between, well, this is a good journal and this is a bad journal?
Right. And that honestly is an entire show topic.
Okay.
So I will be covering all of that on my own. But for right now, I would say that do a little bit of research on the journal itself. Mm-hmm. Go to the journal website if you have questions, and go to the submission guidelines. So they should have submission guidelines that are open to everybody to look at. If they're like, hey, submit it, no payment, we'll look at it, we'll get back to you in 2 months, and then you'll see, like, generally it's probably good. If they're like, hey, you have to pay us $500 to get in, then don't publish with them because that's scam, that's not good. And also you might want to think about reevaluating the work that's actually put in there. But yeah, I think just being aware of what you're digesting and what information and what the platform is that is giving you the information by itself will automatically start weeding out the more suspicious things.
Okay, I can dig that. Let's see, what else did you have to say?
Look for the kind of methodology they used.
So what's an example of a bad methodology that you see?
There are a couple. There are some that are going around right now with this whole COVID-19 thing, where there are some studies that are very concerning. And you're like, oh no, this headline says that there will never be a vaccine because nobody develops antibodies to it. This is terrible news. And then you go into it and you look at the actual study and they say, hey, this wasn't peer reviewed yet. This is still in peer review. People haven't checked this to make sure that this is accurate. This is just some people finding some things. And the sample size was 15 people. And you're like, okay, so not a representative portion of the population.
No.
There wasn't a control group. It wasn't double blind, which means they weren't trying to weed out bias, which isn't always necessary, especially medical testing. It might be a little bit more blurry. But in general, if you see that the number of the study is particularly small, or mm-hmm. if they cite other people who you then research and they have not done their research. So it's just this constant backtrack of, okay, so you're citing this person. Who is this person? What did they do? Who are they citing? So when you're doing, this is why I always get
exhausting.
It is exhausting. And this is why I get a little bit concerned when people call in to Talk Heathen and are like, oh yeah, I did my research. Took me a day. I understand this now. And this is not necessarily calling out DeWitt at all, because it sounds like he actually did a little bit of digging and is interested in learning more. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the time there are like Kevin, right? Kevin would be like, oh yeah, I found this thing on the internet and now I believe it. And you're like, okay, well, how did you find that out? Because if you're going to be accurate in your research, especially for a big topic like a lot of these are, mm-hmm. it's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely. Okay, let's see if we can shoot through a few more of these.
I jumped into climate change, and I don't know if you guys know about the 9.
Make sure that you're going to primary sources instead of these secondary sources that are trying to hype things up in order to sell subscriptions.
Okay, you already went over that.
Right.
And my final question is just this. Do you guys know a specific place where I can get either primary sources or just any scientific journals or any place? I've tried Google Scholar, but I want to know if there's any other better places to get scientific data, studies, journals, and whatnot.
Yes, there are. You can look up, there are a bunch of great peer-reviewed academic websites that you can either get through your local community college or your library or pay a little bit out of pocket for a subscription. A lot of them have free trials. So some of these are LexisNexis Academic, JSTOR, EBSCO, Project Muse, Directory of Open Access Journals, ResearchGate, academia.edu. So these are, I mean, they may have different focuses. I know some of them might skew a little bit more towards the social sciences and the hard sciences, but in general, if you're interested in looking at the papers themselves, not the reporters' versions of the papers, not the quoted, excerpts from other papers. Like if you want to get down to the actual thing that was published by the actual person who did the actual research, these are the places you go to find that.
Awesome. Well, so I already have the links on all of that in the description for this video.
Perfect.
I'm putting them beneath the links to find and follow you. You have a YouTube channel.
I do.
How can people find and follow you? What do you got going on?
Sure. So I have a new show called How to Skeptic, and we talk about this kind of thing. If you're interested in research, if you're interested in good internet hygiene, then this is the place to go. Right now, it's all under my own YouTube name. So it's youtube.com/VRoseLaBianca. And under there, you'll get How to Skeptic videos. You will get my C'est La Vie videos, which are my live weekly meetups with all of the people who watch. We have a chat. It's a lot of fun. So I'm doing those two things on my own. And then, of course, I'm doing Talk Heathen every Sunday with you at 1 p.m. And then Secular Sexuality at 7 p.m. on Thursdays.
And then Murphy's Law on Mondays.
And Murphy's Law on Mondays.
You are really busy.
I'm everywhere all the time.
So
I also just recently had an interview with Seth Andrews, which was very exciting, and I'm thrilled about how that turned out.
Yay.
I know that within a week or two, I will be on Marie Delafonte's podcast, Everybody's Autonomous, and we'll be talking about some stuff there.
Awesome.
So yeah, in addition to all of this, I'm also on all the other channels that you watch, because how dare you try and escape me?
Well, you have my support, obviously, and I'm really, really happy to see you branching out and putting out content. If there's anything that I can do to help, all you guys, if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't checked out and signed up for notifications, V's got so much going on that if you're not checking them out on social media, you're going to miss it. All right, V. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah? Oh, good. Okay. So, if you want to get early access to episodes, you can click here. This is my Patreon. I put out content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you want to click here to subscribe first, right here. Click here to subscribe. Sincerely appreciated. And then right up here, which video should I put, V?
You know which one I'm going to plug.
Which one?
The one with the awesome hook. The awesome clickbait title.
The one where we kissed?
That one.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll put that one there. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.